Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pro Trade Room Plus, the WASDE report. My name is Lee Goldstein. I'm the trading director at 10-Minute Trades. Please remember that all the trades we discuss are for educational purposes. I am not a financial advisor. It is possible to lose money trading futures. Please trade carefully. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, all our guests. Welcome to everyone on YouTube. We got a big party going here today. Everybody's here. Everyone is showing up. Let me know you can hear me fine and see the charts, and we'll get going for the WASDE report. Can you hear me? Okay, so let's get cracking on WASDE. And John, I probably will not be talking that much about margin management at this particular trade room. I'm sorry, but it'll be reserved for some other trade rooms where margin is more of an issue. So it's not that I don't want to answer your questions, just that we have other things that we have to deal with on the WASDE report. Margin is not a big issue on WASDE because they don't raise the margins for this particular event. And depending on what platform you're trading, you just have to check with your broker and check their margin requirements so that you understand how margin is calculated. Just to give you a quick example, Ninja Trader, which is the broker we use, has margin requirements for all the instruments that you trade. And I will post that into the trade room. The key with margin is you have to have enough money, obviously, to trade different instruments. Okay. The instruments we're trading today, $1,000 for corn, soybeans, $1,500 per contract, and we have to double our contracts per trade, per breakout. I will explain that. So I want to welcome everybody. I want to remind everyone, a lot of people are here because you're taking our challenge next week. And I also want to invite everybody that hasn't signed up for the challenge. This is going to be our biggest and best challenge ever. It's always a lot of fun, that's for sure. But the key with the challenge is the education. And a lot of people have already been exposed to great education this week. Some weeks you have a tremendous amount of trading. Some weeks we have a tremendous amount of education. Speaking of trading and speaking of education, you know, education goes along with testing and being smart about what we do. And one of the main things we do is we trade live on the trades that we feel it's appropriate to trade live. And there's no hiding. In other words, I'm taking a live trade today. No matter what happens, there's no hiding from what happens in this event. We're basing our trading on the history of this report. We've been trading this report for years. It goes through various ups and downs. There are multiple instruments that you could trade. We trade corn and soybeans mostly on this event, and we showed the truth, what really happens. Last month, I believe, if my memory serves me well, the WASDE report was the trade of the week. Let's take a look and see what happens. So we go back to October, the exact moment of the trade. Soybeans on the left, corn on the right. The news comes out, it explodes to the upside, and it was a nice $525 profit on soybeans. And corn, if I remember correctly, even though it looks like a very big move, my charts were spread pretty far, and it might not have filled a very specialized type of trade that we take called the trap trade. My notes show that it was a no fill on corn on the trap trade. Soybeans were a nice winner. So first things first, what I like to do is set the trades up early for WASDE because it there are two setups that I'm going to create. And the reason we create two setups on WASDE is because there are two different possible trades that can be taken. Also, there is a history of WASDE. Every now and then, on a rare occasion, we have seen one of the instruments that we're trading move in a way that makes us think the news was early, which might make you want to not trade that particular instrument. So if I have two trades set up, I have the possibility of trading another setup if we get an early move. So for instance, if we're looking at soybeans and soybeans looks like it's moving early for some reason, I can hop over to our corn trade and trade that. So those are the two instruments we'll be trading. The WASDE historically is a very interesting report because one of our founders, Eric, traded the WASDE in a coffee shop in New York City. And he's always still has the videos, which is great. Goes back like 10 years when he was trading the same report. It's pretty amazing that some of the same events that we traded so long ago that we're still trading today. And just to give you an idea how serious we take this, when we do our setups, we have data on the WASDE going back 1 year, almost 2 years. And this is telling us how big the bursts were when the WASDE news was released. And then this other column is showing us how big the profit possibility might have been. So it's not like we're just randomly picking out a report and saying, hey, I think that WASDE is a grain report. There's a war in Ukraine. Ukraine is one of the largest exporters of grain. There could be movement in the grain markets from this report. No, that's not what we do. We actually look at the data and we try to come up with an intelligent trade setup based on the data. And that's how we do what we do. Then we generate our report for our members the day before the event. We send out our WASDE trade report. And that's the first thing we usually do in our trade room. This is our daily market mover trade report. Now, corn, if you notice, the last 6 breakouts on our little journal for corn, corn is a coin toss. 3 winners, 3 losers. Not great. It's 50-50. You all know me. I'm not a big coin toss kind of person. So I will be setting up a trap trade on corn. That will be my second available trade setup, and I'll do that after we talk soybeans. Soybeans are very big movers when they work, and they've been working very well. 5 out of the last 6 have been excellent moves on soybeans. 96 ticks, 69 ticks, 100 ticks, 121 ticks, 168. Soybeans can really move. Now, on a trade that moves that much, there's always going to be some slippage. But when you get a move that big, you're usually overcoming the slippage and grabbing profit once that slippage is overcome. Sometimes you're getting extra ticks of profit, and we call that positive slippage. So I'll be trading soybeans. Now, what's interesting about what we do, because I video record almost all of our rooms for educational purposes, not to post necessarily, but to look at how I traded the last report. So for instance, we've got soybeans. And if we go back into October, it's showing exactly how I traded soybeans, because I can look at the way that I entered the trade into my software. And I always like to just remind myself, sometimes I realize, of course, that for people in the trade room, it might just be jumbled up. You may not understand what you're looking at all the time, but I will explain what I'm talking about on this trade. Okay, So WASDE on soybeans. And I'm going to be fairly close to our DMM with a little bit of modification on the targets. That's the main thing that I'm going to do differently. So we're going to have a breakout trade on soybeans, and I like the 15 bracket. The real question on WASDE is what kind of targets do you want to use? The stop we know is a 30-tick stop. We have a time entry. We know what our time entry is going to be. It's going to be 11:59:58. It's a 12 o'clock event. So a couple of seconds before the event takes place, our orders are going to show up on the charts. We've got a bracket of 15. Our first target is just 9 ticks. And then if you're going to trade 2 contracts, 2 positions, you have to decide what you want to do for your second target. When you see that there's big movements in WASDE, but we also know there can be reversals, there can be slippage, you have to make a decision what that second target should be. So I would consider somewhere between probably 21 and 60. I'm not going to be greedy because I know the way WASDE works, and I know that it moves fast, and I know that it sometimes changes direction. So I'm looking for a burst, targets to get hit, and to exit the trade. That's what I'm looking for. What I'll also do is if my first target gets hit, then I'll use our feature target 1 stop move, and I'll move my stop to break even -3. And that's all I really have to do to set up my WASDE trade. I turn off my account warnings. I always like to label the trade soy so I know which setup I'm looking at. And if I apply it and then okay it, my trade will show up in the control panel right here. But the other thing I like to do is test my brackets, the width of the brackets. By being in sim before we start. And once there is a calculation in price, we'll get our brackets. And it's just so we can analyze the trade when our orders get placed on the chart. This is what the brackets are going to look like exactly. We have a long order to the upside. We have a short order to the downside. That's the format. That's the format of my breakout trade. Then I'm going to go back. I'm going to put my time back to normal, 11:59:58 Eastern time. Okay, if you're in California, then you're going to make that activation time your local time. That's the key. Apply it. It's also important. I'm trading, like I said, real live money. My account goes on our account, our cash account. It's not a prop account. It's not a sim account. It's a cash account. That's how we do it on most of our rooms. And it's a 15 bracket, a 15 bracket. The stop is 30. The activation time is 11:59:58. And Caesar, I'm going to leave you to your own targets. Anywhere between 9, I think, and 9 and 60 is within reason based on the way this WASDE report moves. And the other thing that I like to do, if we do hit that first target, I do like to use the target 1 stop move to move my stop automatically to break even -3. So I've got 1 trade set up and ready to go with WASDE. Now, the second trade I'm going to set up is on the right chart. I've got corn. And make sure, folks, that you're trading the instruments that we're recommending. I've already checked volume on the instruments. We are trading the correct contracts, I promise. ZS 124, ZC 1223. There are a couple of different contracts sometimes with grains that both have high volume. We almost always would trade the highest volume contract. That's the nature of how we do it. So now I'm going to choose a trap trade for corn. I'm going to look for a template because I probably have one. I'm going to load the template. And I have a ZC trap. It's dated October. And I'm just going to check the setup against our DMM and against the last second testing notes that Chantal and I have made. And I'm just looking for a second. A trap trade is based on spikes. So again, we have research that helps us determine whether or not and what the size of the order should be, where it's going to sit on the chart. So if you look at the last 6 corn, the biggest move we had was 36 ticks. And our tiers are 25 and 35, or it could be 23 and 35. I like the setup that we have. 23 and 35 is fine. We're using a stop of 20. You add the stop and your upper tier, 35 and 20, for instance, is a 55 zone of safety. That means if it's a spike less than 55 ticks, we would not get stopped out on an explosion in price. Okay. Corn has not been coming anywhere near those types of explosions, so I'm not anticipating a huge explosion in corn, but you never know what happens. Our stop is 20. Let's double check. Just want to look at the DMM and just give everyone a heads up if I'm making any last minute change. And I'm really not. I'm pretty much using the exact setup that we put on. Sometimes last second changes do occur. I'm going to go 23. Tier 2 is 35. That's fine. The time of the event is 12. And there's really not much else that you have to do on a trap trade. Make sure the account warnings are disabled. And my trap trade does not get enabled. It's only going to be used if for some reason I thought that soybeans didn't look like they were safe to trade or they were too volatile to trade. So I've got one position each on my corn tiers, a stop of 20, tiers of 23 and 35, and the time of the event is 12. And then finally, the prep time. When will the orders show up on the chart? 5 seconds before the event is expected at 12 noon. My label is corn, and I am live, but like I said, I don't need to enable it. Maybe at the last minute, if I don't like the way soybeans are behaving, I can always enable a second possible setup. I don't generally like to trade both at the same time. WASDE can be volatile, and I like using it as a single setup because sometimes you have to manage your way out of a trade. I do like to take a look at the pre-volatility or the volatility of the instruments that we're trading. Before the news, you could see that corn is roughly down 4.75. Soybeans are down 8.5 points roughly. We calculate those numbers generally from 6 p.m. open. Grains are a little bit different because they trade different times. But as long as I'm not seeing 20s, 30s, big out of reality numbers, I'm not overly concerned with what the volatility was pre-WASDE, because it will almost always give us a pretty good move. That's the nature of this report. I also don't cancel a WASDE report. If you notice on our daily trade report, we have a cancellation rule. And the cancellation rule sometimes makes lots of sense. This morning, there was opportunities to cancel our Thursday jobless claims because gold didn't move on the news. And you probably should have canceled it. And we recommended that people do. On WASDE, because WASDE's, it's not a private report, but it's a report that does not show up on calendars. So you don't know what the news is. So for the breakout, we have a 20-second cancel. Cancel if no fill. But we've seen over the years, I've even seen WASDE go almost a minute. And then didn't we have a trade room last month where WASDE took 24 hours to fill? Do I have that right? I don't know if you get the joke, but the calendars were all screwed up last month and we showed up a day early. Anyway, so keep in mind, I'm not going to automatically cancel if there's no response. Initially, we do know that we should see a response. Usually a couple of seconds anyway. It almost never comes up as something you have to worry about. But sometimes the cancellation it can play a part. As of late, it has not been something we've had to deal with. Going to the website, time is to check our time sync. And you can see my computer is out of sync. So I'm actually going to use one of the free programs that we supply to our members that's in the room drive. I'm going to use that free program. It's called Dimension 4. I'm just going to click the sync button 1,000 times until I notice that my synchronized line changes. And that means that one of the servers that we're connected to will attempt to sync my computer, and then I'll check it by going back to the website time is, and you notice now I'm in sync. It's important to be in sync because we're trading sometimes to the second, right? You notice we're putting our orders on the chart 2 seconds before the news comes out. What if your computer's 5 seconds out of sync? It could ruin a winning trade and it could make you enter too late. So it's very important to be in sync. In our trade room, we give our members, and anyone who's a guest here today is welcome to download in the room drive. If you click on the room drive, you're welcome to download D4 Time is a free little program that syncs your computer. There's also another program called PT Sync Setup. That's called Karen's Time Sync. A lot of people love that also. You can also download our clock. It's called Topmost Clock. It's not ours. It's a really, really excellent little program, tiny little program that can be used with any trading platform. And these are some of the nice things that we like to do. We try to find as many tools, free especially is good, that we can use to help us trade the news. Any quick questions? Any quick questions? Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button. Let us know you like the fact that we're streaming this trade for free, so you can enjoy watching us trade the WASDE report. WASDE report, we've been trading this report as long as I've been with the company. I've been here for more than 7 years now, I guess. Yep, more than 7 years. I didn't know what a WASDE was when I got here, but we all learned pretty quick. And now let's watch one more quick WASDE video, September. Now, September, let's see what we were doing in September. Interestingly, and I want to make sure I'm showing you the right video. Looks like I was testing corn as a trap trade. I think that what we were doing that day, that's not the video I wanted to show you. Let me grab another live WASDE trade. It'll be more useful. So this was August WASDE. And in the August video, you could see there's a gigantic move in July WASDE, exploded to the downside. And then we have August WASDE, getting right to the moment of the report. Trading soybeans, very big explosion, profit of $412 on that one. That was a very, very volatile move. It burst up, shot down, burst up. Very, very fast mover. WASDE can do very volatile movements on the instrument that we're trading. It's not unusual. In fact, it's the norm to have extreme volatility. Now, what's interesting is we follow a lot of different calendars. We look at forexfactory.com. We look at Econoday. We look at investing.com. We look at financialjuicepro.com. And all of those calendars are very helpful, but they don't cover the WASDE report. For a couple of months, Financial Juice was actually reporting WASDE, some limited WASDE results, but for some reason they stopped doing it. Forex Factory has never covered the trade, and then investing.com simply just lists the fact that there is a WASDE report in their calendar. So that's why we don't have any news up or listed, and it's a report that we won't know the news until long after we're done trading. There is a website, of course, a government website that has to do with grains and how much grains are planted and things like that. And that's actually what the WASDE report is. It's a report that covers a tremendous amount of instruments. There's soybean, oil, there's wheat, corn, and cotton. And there's more than just two instruments that will move. We just feel that the best bang for the buck has been with soybeans and or corn. Corn has been more challenged lately. Corn had been our instrument of choice for quite a few years, actually. And Ed, good luck. It's definitely a significantly volatile report to make your first live trade. Everybody makes their own decisions. We've got a minute and a half to go. Our orders are going to show up. Little X's are going to show up on the chart. Corn, soybeans, they don't look all that volatile before the report. I'm not seeing any elements of pre-news super volatility out of soybeans. If for some reason I saw an explosion all the way up to the PP or something of that sort, I could uncheck this little checkbox and then check my corn checkbox, and my other trade would be trading. We've got 1 minute. And look, whatever happens, happens. There's no guarantee we're going to have a winning trade on this report. But we try to trade the reports that have been paying us, and WASDE has been paying us. And that's why it's a family money trade. It's a trade that if my daughter was trading along with me, I would trade her money. Okay, we got 30 seconds. So we're just waiting patiently. Just waiting and watching. Orders are going to show up right about now. There's my orders. Moving my stop to break even, bringing it down further. Okay. Only $287 because it reversed pretty quickly. It doesn't mean the trade's over. I grabbed a quick 287, didn't do anything wrong at all. It almost looked like it was going to hit my second target. It probably would have, folks. Looks like it would have. I'm sure that traders in the room made a whole bunch of money. Everybody, when you're ready, start typing in how much money you made. I don't think anyone should have lost money on this trade. What worries me, though, is the trap trade. Depends on how big that corn moved. All right, Roz, 550 bucks. Steve, 540. Let's start rolling in the dough because this was an excellent, excellent trade. Excellent, excellent trade. Let's hear it, folks. If you traded, tell me what happened to you on this trade. Good, bad, indifferent, got stopped, made a ton, traded wrong. Tell us the truth because we want everyone to know what the truth is. So I was able to grab my first target plus maybe a quarter of my second target. And very honestly, folks, I'll happily take $287. I'm here to teach. I want to keep building my account, but I'm here to teach. Now, Steve also made $165 taking that reversal. Okay. David, I'm curious what happened to you on corn. That's what I'm curious if you did not get filled. Is that what you're saying? You did not get filled? So we'll see. We could do a test of that. We could do a test of that. Anyone else? Anybody else? I'm seeing nothing but profits, folks. Now, if you're on YouTube, not one person has hit the like button. Folks, YouTube, come on. Hit that like button. How could you not like watching people make money? How could you not like it? Andrew, one contract, 175 bucks. Roz, 550. Steve, 540 plus 165. Did no one else trade? Somebody else must have traded. Ed, what happened on your trade? First trade. Ed, you made a mistake. Well, I hope the mistake did not cause you a loss. I hope it meant that you didn't get filled. Doc, you had your bracket too big. Okay, sometimes that will cause you not to make money if the bracket's too big. The move, if you look, we'll look at the video to calculate the exact size of the move. But I'm just seeing 55 down to 36. Let's say 35. Let's say 20 points. It's about an 80 tick move. It looks like about an 80 tick move on soybeans. And I'm very ballparking that because I'm not sure yet till we go to the video to see what happened on where the price was exactly when it shot down. This was a perfect WASDE, folks. This is why we call this a family money trade. It's the beauty of trading the way that we trade. I want to remind everybody, if you don't want to join our challenge now, you're never going to join our challenge. So let me just post the link to join the challenge. Don't you want to learn how to do this if you don't know how to do this? Okay. So join our challenge. All right. And that's what we got going. Let's look at the video. The WASDE is over for us. Okay. Now, corn, you could see why corn is a secondary setup. First off, it did not have a good reversal today. It's only a secondary setup. Our setup of choice is the soybean breakout. Okay. It's the setup of choice. Okay, Ed, very, very, very common mistake. Left it on sim instead of live. Ed, it's not the end of the world. I would have told you, Ed, in all honesty, not to make WASDE your first live trade. But Ed, send me an email today and I'll tell you what I would do next week for your first live trade. Fair enough? Langford, sweet trade. Langford, $839. Okay. So everyone that traded, as long as they got filled, had awesome setups, awesome trades. Let me show you the video. Let's take a look and debrief exactly what happened here. It was not, this is not rocket science today, folks. This is a pretty straight ahead WASDE. Put your orders on the chart, sit back, watch it fill, and then maybe you had to manage your way out, but maybe not, okay? I probably was overly aggressive with my stop, which is my trading illness. I'm definitely often overly aggressive with my stop, and it cuts off my profits way too often. I make profits, and our account is growing beautifully. It's still over 32,000 after a couple of difficult trades over the past week. But sometimes you're better off not touching or messing with the stop until you give the trade a chance to breathe. It's very important to give things a chance to breathe. Let's take a look at the video because, like I said, this was not complicated today. It was a very straight ahead setup. It was actually a perfect setup. So I'm going to go to the moment of, actually, let me recap the way that we traded it. Okay. I had a 15 tick bracket. I had targets of 9 and 35 and a stop of 30. My stop automatically moved to break even -3 after my first target got hit. Okay. Now, watch what happens. 12 o'clock rolls along. Now, don't worry about that error. When the market moves so fast, what you want to do is just close that by clicking OK so it's not in the way. Sometimes when the market moves so fast, it tries to place your stop and it's already past your stop. It's already hit your targets. You're in profit. So you just have to remember, move your stop manually if you have to, or do what I do and make sure the stop has a break-even stop move. If anything, our targets were just way too small, way too small. All you had to do today was really just sit back and watch. I overmanaged my trade by not sitting back and watching, but like I said, I do it all the time. I can't help it. I've been trading for many, 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 many years. I'm better than I used to be, but sometimes I break my rules and I just manage my trade too aggressively. This was a perfect, perfect event. Watch one more time. The brackets show up. The news is relatively quick. Here comes the news. Boom. News comes out. Doesn't quite, it only gets about halfway to my target. So I bring my target, my stop down, and it hits it. I mean, I wasn't even super aggressive on it. It wasn't that bad, really, but it didn't have to be moved. I could have left it way up here, and then it would have hit my second target. Okay? So that's one of the things you practice. How do you deal with your stop in a trade? And if let's take a quick look at corn. So corn, right at noon, was 471. That's where the price was. Corn shot down to 468. So David, that's why you did not get filled. There's nothing wrong with your software. It was only a 12 tick move. So there was no fill. There wasn't anything wrong. There was no fill. It only moved. My charts are spread wide. That's why the corn move looks big. Okay. It just did not move very far at all. And it did not reverse very much either. If you look, Did not reverse very much either. That's why we're still not trading corn, certainly not as our main trade. Now, let me just double check. Eventually, corn did get to 66. So let's say it went 5 points. That's still only 20 ticks. Okay. Okay, folks, any questions? See what I mean about charts being spread? Now, soy was a much bigger move. You're up here at 57-ish, up at the top there. It's down to 36-ish. It's 4 ticks per point, $12.50 per tick. Okay. So one question, so a gentleman was asking about margin, and I wasn't quite clear what the question was. Margin is pretty simple. It just means that you have to have enough money in your account to cover the amount the broker requires for you to have in your account. So in other words, if the broker says you have to have $1,000 for each contract of soybeans that you trade, and you trade a breakout trade, each order is double the 1,000. Okay, so you have to have 2,000 per contract for each breakout level. So we have 2 levels. So that means you have to have at least 4,000 in your account. Plus you have to have extra money above that so that if you go negative on the trade, the broker won't shut you down. So if you're trading a report that you could lose $1,000 on, you better have more than $1,000 above and beyond the required margin. Otherwise, the broker can shut you down. So for instance, if you need $4,000 in cash to trade a trade, just to cover the margin, you should probably put at least another 1,000 above and beyond that, so that you don't have a challenge with not having enough money. I believe one thing that's very important. If you're always worried about margin, it means you probably are trading with an account that's too small to trade the way that you're trading. I'm lucky in that I never have to think about, I wouldn't say never, I rarely have to think about margin because our account is a proper size for the risks that we're taking. In other words, if I wanted to, I could have traded 5 contracts on this trade and not come anywhere near our margin requirements. Trading is complicated, and I don't want to spend extra time worrying about margins and worrying about things that are extra above and beyond trading itself. I would like those items to be taken care of so I don't have to think about them. There's too many other things that are very important also that you do have to think about, like managing your stop and choosing your targets, analyzing the technical analysis a little bit. I don't want to worry about margin. I want to just make sure I have enough money in my account to not worry about margin. And I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that traders make. They don't fund their accounts properly. So it's important to just keep that in mind. You don't want to think what's the least amount of money I can fund my account with. It's the opposite. What's the most I can fund my account with so that I could trade the best I can possibly trade? Any questions? Now, folks, you're all still invited to join us for our bond trade. We'll be trading the 30-year bond auction. And that we'll be back in the room here at 12:30. Time for a short coffee break. I want to thank everybody on YouTube. Hit that like button on your way out, folks. That's your way of thanking us for streaming. We'd really appreciate it. Chantal, I don't know if you're able to close out the YouTube setup. But so Roz, you bring up a very interesting idea. Pity Ninja doesn't offer interest. So what you're saying is if you don't have enough margin, you could borrow it for individual trades? Is that what they do? The thing about interactive brokers, Roz, is they don't have day trade margins. So actually, they're not even an option for trading the way that we do because they don't want you trading this way. They don't have day trade margins. At least the last time I checked with IB, their margins are always the highest of the highest margins that you can have. Oh, I see what you're saying. You can earn interest on the money. Yes, to every broker. It should be a law that they should be required to do that, don't you think? If they sit with your money, they should have to pay you interest on it. Absolutely. IB is a great company in a lot of ways. But the one thing I don't understand, or I do understand it, they don't want day traders on futures because they don't offer day trade margins. And I've called them and spoken to them, and basically they just said, yep, it's just the way we do it. We don't offer day trade margins. So folks, we're going to get ready for the 30-year bond auction. It's only in 15 minutes. Any last questions? We'll go take a short break. We're not going to shut the room. I'll come back in 15, not even, and we'll come back and we'll make a decision about what we're going to do on the 30-year bond auction. Okay, everyone? So I'll see everybody in a little bit. That was a great WASDE. Don't forget, no reason not to join the challenge if you haven't already joined. Here's the link. It's going to be 5 great days of education. And I don't have to tell Roz how much fun it's going to be. Roz already won one of our challenges. And you could win a desktop, not a desktop, a Dell laptop this time. So it's going to be pretty awesome. Okay, everyone. I'll see you in a little bit. See you in about 15 for the 30-year bond auction. Take care, everyone.